Hello folks and welcome. This is Spoon TV. We're live here at the ground of Criminal Court C. There you see former Finance Minister Samuel Tweah making his way into Criminal Court C, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries, taking a picture on him. And he has just made his way into the court. We cannot enter, but what we can say is you can see the former Finance Minister has made his way into the court. And there is a very heavy police presence here. So wherever it is you're watching us from, the former Finance Minister Samuel D. Tweah, who along with 4 others have been indicted in a $500 million corruption case that includes economic sabotage, mismanagement of funds, and a host of other charges, has just surrendered himself to Criminal Court C. So former Minister Tweah, accompanied by some of his family members, he has made his way into the court where he has officially surrendered himself to the courts here in Liberia. So wherever it is you're watching us from, the former Finance Minister entered the court all smiling, exchanging handshakes and the rest. So what we can tell you the proceeding is the former minister has surrendered himself to the court. The court is going to determine whether his bond is good, if he does make bond or make bond here. And there is a heavy presence of police here on the grounds of the Temple of Justice as well. There is a heavy presence of state police here on the grounds of the Temple of Justice. So the breaking news is the former Finance Minister just entered Criminal Court C. He just surrendered himself to the Republic of Liberia. There is a heavy police presence. The former Finance Minister entered the country this morning around 1 a.m. on an Air Peace Air flight and subsequently made his way to his residence. And now he's here at Criminal Court C. So there is a heavy police presence. The former Finance Minister didn't come with a very large entourage of followers as was anticipated. His lawyers, including Councillor Arthur Johnson, accompanied him into the hall of Criminal Court C. He's wearing a gray suit. The former Finance Minister wearing a gray suit and was all smiles. As to the entire process, will remain posted right here to bring you all of what is happening at the grounds of the Temple of Justice. So he has surrendered himself to the court. As you can see, there's movements all around. The entire grounds of the Temple of Justice is well marshaled by state security as well. So we are not allowed to enter the court and do videos from within the court. But what we can tell you is he has since surrendered himself. In July of this year, the former Finance Minister, the former Director of the Financial Intelligence Agency, the FIA, Stanley Ford, the Comptroller, Mr. Cooper, and the former Solicitor General of the Republic of Liberia, Tweah, were all indicted by the government of Liberia on counts of criminal conspiracy, corruption, mismanagement of public funds, and economic sabotage. So wherever it is you watching us from, remember, according to the Liberian jurisprudence, you are innocent until proven guilty. 3 out of the 5 were arrested, subsequently detained, and they filed a bond of $6 million United States dollars issued by the Sky Insurance International. They were subsequently set free, and the case has been transferred to Criminal Court C. Whether or not the former minister will be covered by the bond, that is why we are here, or whether or not he will file a separate bond, that is why we are here. There's been a lot of different legal arguments that the bond filed by the 3 other co-defendants applies to all of the co-defendants. As to whether or not the court is going to interpret that as it is, we do not want to speculate. But you see, one of his lawyers, Councillor Arthur Johnson, is in conversation. We can confirm to you that in Criminal Court C, as we speak, the former Finance Minister Samuel Tweah has surrendered himself to the courts here in Liberia. So wherever it is you're watching from, kindly share this podcast, share this link, this breaking news. We did get the information that at 1 a.m. this morning, approximately 1 a.m. this morning, the former finance minister came in country on board an Air Peace flight and through the Roberts International Airport, and was picked up, according to our sources, by family members. His whereabouts as of that time was unknown. The Liberian government issued through Interpol a red alert to have him arrested on any international soil. The former finance minister decided to take the option of returning voluntarily to the country rather than being whisked away by foreign security apparatus and brought to Liberia. So as we can speak to you, the former finance minister is in criminal court C. So wherever it is you watching us from, we're live here on the grounds of the Temple of Justice. This breaking story: Stanley Ford, the former head of the Financial Intelligence Agency, is still at large. So this makes it 4 out of 5 of the defendants listed in that indictment that have now surrendered themselves to the courts here in Liberia. So we're live, we will remain live to bring you all of the happenings. My name is Diamond Slanger. There is a heightened presence of state security. His lawyers are moving back and forth. There you see Arthur Johnson again entering the sheriff's office. They're moving back and forth. We're not allowed to go in the courtroom, so we remain posted right here. So former Minister Samuel Tweah has surrendered to the courts here in Liberia. So the proceeding is ongoing, and you can see that's Arthur Johnson. That's the former minister. That's the former minister. They're just passing our shot. He has got his court document in his hands, and we've been informed by our colleagues inside the court that he's now going to sit on the bench. So folks, you just saw the former minister just walk past our camera. There he is again. There he is. He's accompanied by Aloysius Howe, his confidant. He's moving in and out of the sheriff's office. So now the door has been closed again. The former finance minister is wearing a gray suit, as you just saw him pass twice in our shot. So we remain posted right here. The breaking news that the country did wake up to is that the former Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Samuel D. Tweah, is now under the jurisdiction of Liberian laws. The former finance minister, according to our information, arrived in country at about 1 a.m. this morning on board an Air Peace flight. Since July of this year, the government of Liberia issued an indictment, a writ of arrest, and an indictment for 5 individuals, including the former Minister of Finance. So we remain right here. We are not allowed to enter the court, so we remain right here in front of Criminal Court C. The former Finance Minister, Samuel Tweah, has surrendered to the justice system here in Liberia. We are right before Criminal Court C. And this is a breaking news. He is so far the highest ranking former official that has been indicted by the government of Liberia. There's still an investigation ongoing involving the former Chief of Staff to President George Mann, and we are now Senator of Margibi County, Senator Nathaniel Fallow McGill. That has now reached to an indictment yet concerning supplementary payroll at the Ministry of State when he served as minister at that ministry. But now I'm talking about indictment, writ of arrest, and subsequently being turned over to the courts here in Liberia. Former Minister Samuel Tweah is the highest ranking official of the WIA's administration that has now entered the court here in Liberia. It is still a far cry from the process that you see one of his lawyers, Arthur Johnson, going into the sheriff's office the government of Liberia announced that they had requested through Interpol a red notice to be placed on the former minister to have him arrested to come and face trial here in Liberia. The former minister opted not to have been arrested, but rather came in willingly into the country this morning. He was picked up, according to our sources, by family members and then taken to an unknown destination. We got the information that he would turn himself over to the courts, and since we've been here, he has now done so. So he's now under the jurisdiction of the court here. Criminal Court C here at the Temple of Justice is where we are. Keep watching Spoon TV. His lawyers are moving out and about. That is his brother, Norris Tweah, one of the individuals that walked him into the court. And he's still in the sheriff's office. So we want to zoom a bit and see when he shall exit again the sheriff's office and go before the judge. So wherever you're watching us from, the doors are being shut. As you can see, the one of the doors being shut. Okay, so we still have an angle to bring you what is unfolding. The Solicitor General of the Republic of Liberia is present. The Montserrat County Attorney is also present here. There is a heavy presence of state security surrounding the Temple of Justice. So all this is happening right at Criminal Court C. Minister Tweah has been vocal on social media. He termed his indictment as a witch hunt. He also, while he was out of the country, was providing, in his terms, clarity as to accusations against him. So now he has surrendered himself to the laws of Liberia. Keep watching. My name is Diamond Slanger. On behalf of the Spoon Network, right here at Criminal Court C, Minister Tweah, the former finance minister, one of the top confidants of former President George Weah, has turned himself over to the law. Whether or not the court is going to honor his bond, whether or not the bond that was filed by the three other co-defendants, because all of them have got one joint indictment, whether that bond will be honored and he will subsequently be let go of until the trial begins. We are watching how this proceeding is going to unfold. But all that now is at the discretion of the court. His lawyers, he's got a very, very, very strong legal team to argue why he should be granted a bond and whether or not the bond filed, the 6 million bond filed by the Sky Insurance Company International on his behalf and the behalf of other co-defendants is going to cover him, is going to apply to his case as well. So folks, this is a far cry from the trial. This is not the trial. So we see there police officers are moving, making sure that this entire ground is fortified, well protected, well marshaled. We see riot police officers moving around. It's not a normal day here at Criminal Court. So the court has been called to order. We will now see the former minister make his way to the defendant's bench. His lawyer goes for him. Arthur Johnson goes for him. So in a minute, there he is, the former finance minister. Aloysius Howe is behind him. He is now making his way to the docket. So we cannot enter, but there you see the former finance minister. If we just zoom a bit, he has now gone to sit on the prisoner's bench. He's accompanied by his brother Norris Tweah. Norris Tweah, Aloysius Howe, and the rest. They now go before the judge here at Criminal Court C. So folks, we remain posted right here to bring you all of the information happening here at Criminal Court C. We've got our sources in the court as well to bring you play by play what is unfolding. So share this live podcast. The breaking news is the former Minister of Finance, Samuel Tweah, is now before the court here at Criminal Court C. He arrived in the country this morning, as our sources reported, via an Air Peace flight at about 1 a.m. this morning. He's currently sitting on the defendant's bench, represented by his legal team. One of his lawyers include Arthur Johnson, and the Republic of Liberia has got its representation as well. So we'll keep following the proceedings here on the grounds of the Temple of Justice. So we cannot go in, as many of you are requesting. That is a restriction. We cannot go in, but we'll do our best, as we always have been doing as the Spoon Network, to provide you with live happenings from within Criminal Court C. The grounds are heavily protected by officers of the Liberia National Police. Minister Tweah, the former finance minister, did not come in with a very large entourage, the usual political followers that we see accompanying all of this. Wasn't seen earlier when he arrived, whether or not his supporters are going to come and show him support, as we usually do, a show of force that is usually done in this country. We've not witnessed any of that so far. There hasn't been any sort of confrontation between the former minister supporters and state officers as well. So the court is in session, and we cannot go in the court. We cannot bring you live proceedings from within the court before we to be held for contempt in an attempt to provide you with the information. So what we can do is, the next best thing is to make sure we bring you all of what is unfolding in Criminal Court C. So just to recap, since July of this year, the governor of Liberia issued an arrest warrant and subsequently an indictment for persons, namely Samuel D. Tweah, former Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Henry Ford, former head of the Financial Intelligence Agency, Councillor Yanati Tweah, former Solicitor General, Republic of Liberia, and Mr. Norris Cooper, the controller, former controller at the Financial Intelligence Agency, the FIA. So the names again of those who were subsequently indicted: Jefferson Kamo, former National Security Advisor to the former president; Councillor Yanati Tweah, former Solicitor General, Republic of Liberia; Moses Cooper, so a point of correction, Moses Cooper, the former accountant at the Financial Intelligence Agency, and as well as the then head of the Financial Intelligence Agency. So far, only Mr. Ford, Mr. Stanley Ford, only Mr. Ford has not surrendered himself to the courts of Liberia. Minister Tweah's surrender makes him the 4th out of 5 persons there. So he termed this as a witch hunt against he and others who supported the former president, and on Facebook, so many a time providing his own explanation to prove his innocence. But all of that was outside of the court and doesn't count. Right now he's before the court, and the first order of the matter is to read his indictment, and then they'll see whether or not a bail bond will be issued on his behalf, or the bond that was secured through the Sky Insurance Company for the defendants applies to him as well. So the Spoon Network is live here and we will continue to bring you all of what is unfolding. Vehicular traffic is flowing freely, we should tell you that. There isn't a mass gathering of supporters outside of the court. We should tell you that. As you can see from the live coverage, it's all calm and peaceful here without any sort of disturbances. The former finance minister is in the court and proceedings are ongoing. We'll bring you all of the updates here. So, folks, keep sharing this live podcast. Please keep sharing this live podcast as we bring you all of the unfoldings. When the former finance minister disembarked the vehicle, he was all smiles. He was exchanging handshakes, He presented the picture of a person who looks totally unbothered of what was unfolding. He greeted his friends and family members, supporters alike, and entered the court. So what we can tell you for sure is the proceeding is currently ongoing in Criminal Court C, right here at the Temple of Justice. The main trial hasn't even commenced. This is just he surrendered himself to the court, and subsequently the indictment will be read. You saw him with his court papers in his hands, moving out and of the sheriff's office, going before the judge. Whatever the arguments are in the court there, will bring you all of that. So far, this is what is unfolding. So just again to give you a view of what's outside the court like. This is the outside of the court. You see the police officers are in their riot gears. They are full riot gears. They've got their ballistic shields and helmets. They've got their batons. They've now stationed themselves all around, providing a protective perimeter. So there isn't so far the gathering of supporters as would normally occur during such a high-profile case, especially a case that has got a high-profile political figure, and this time from the main opposition party, the CDC, a one-time finance minister. Just from the previous regime, we haven't seen the gathering of supporters, the chantings, but the police officers are moving further to establish their protective perimeter. So they are moving further to the main entrance leading to the headquarters of the Liberia National Police. So folks, all this is happening as the former finance minister Samuel Tweah is currently before the court. He's currently before the court, and to be precise, the court is Criminal Court C. So the police are stepping up their protective perimeter, their barricade, their buffer zone right here before the main entrance. So there is a stricter protocol to enter the court. So folks, you just saw the presence of state security officers before the main entrance leading to the Temple of Justice from the main Tottenham Boulevard. There's also a heightened presence of state security officers at the alternate entrance at the Temple of Justice. Just before the executive mansion as well. So the IG of the Liberia National Police, whether this is coincidental, is making his way, and so we just saw the Inspector General of the Liberia National Police, Colonel Gregory Coleman, and some of his top lieutenants making their way back to their headquarters. We cannot speak to whether or not it's related to the surrender of the former finance minister. We cannot speak to that, or is something else. But earlier this morning when we arrived, we did see top brass of the police, scanning the grounds of the Temple of Justice. There was an early morning deployment, and so far it has been calmed here on the grounds of the Temple of Justice. There hasn't been any sort of confrontation between state security and supporters of the former finance minister. We will take you around the entire grounds of the Temple of Justice, but right now this is where the action is, Criminal Court C, at the grounds of the Temple of Justice. So to bring you up to speed with what unfolded earlier this morning, the former finance minister Samuel Tweah, we received information, came into the country at about 1 a.m. this morning on board an Air Peace flight. He was subsequently picked up by family members and friends and taken to an unnamed destination. We then got conflicting information that he was arrested by the LNP. That cannot be confirmed, but our sources again hinted that he would have surrendered himself to the courts here in Liberia. True to that, we came on the grounds of the Temple of Justice. We did see some of his lawyers, namely Councillor Arthur Johnson, making some calls and all of that. There was the deployment, and there is still the deployment of state security officers all around the grounds of the Temple of Justice. We then get to see the former finance minister make his way here to Criminal Court C on board a Mercedes-Benz SUV. He was wearing, and he is wearing, a gray suit. He disembarked the vehicle, was all smiles, exchanging handshakes with acquaintances, then made his way into the court. So we want to let you know that the former finance minister was not shackled. He didn't have handcuffs on his hands. That is a clearer point we want to make. He walked freely into the courts, accompanied by his lawyers. So do not take any misinformation that he was shackled or he had handcuffs on his hands. No, he walked freely into the court and took a seat. He was later then escorted into the sheriff's office, where the court papers were handed to him. He held his papers in his hands. He entered the sheriff's office twice, and then subsequently the court was called to order. So he's currently seated on the defendant's bench. So we want to make that very clear to our viewers and to our listeners that the former finance minister did not have any cuffs on his hands when he made his way into the court. As to whether or not the bond will be honored by the court and deemed as good, and he will subsequently be turned over to his lawyers, that is the process that is ongoing as well. So it is all before the court. It is at the discretion of the court. So the former finance minister is currently in criminal court C here on the grounds of the Temple of Justice. $500 million accusations ranging from economic sabotage, mismanagement of funds, criminal conspiracy, corruption, and all that. So the government of Liberia issued an indictment in July. There was also legal remedies sought by his lawyers. One of those was to issue a request for a writ of prohibition from the Supreme Court of Liberia. A stay order was placed on all other legal actions by the justice in chamber, Justice Kaba. At the time, a conference was slated for the 4th of September of this year. All of that process is done. So we want to make sure we bring you the actual happenings as it unfolds here at Criminal Court C. So far, so good. The grounds of the Temple of Justice has got no political chantings, no confrontations whatsoever. State security officers are far outside of the gates of the court. They're stationed before the entrance leading to the headquarters of the Liberian National Police and that of the courts. So there hasn't been any sort of confrontation. The former minister walked in the court with his aide, Aloysius Howe, who held his papers for him. He was also accompanied by Arthur Johnson and his brother Norris Tweah. So he didn't arrive with a very large contingent. He didn't arrive with a very large number of followers. There hasn't been any sort of confrontation. He surrendered himself to the courts here, and the process is ongoing. So we remain right here to provide you the actual information as it's unfolding. So kindly share this live podcast with your friends. The breaking news is, after his indictment in July, the former finance minister has finally turned himself over to the laws of the Republic of Liberia. So folks, we are exerting all efforts to bring you updates from within the court. We are not permitted, as per the rules here, to go in the court and do a live coverage as well. We cannot do that. We don't have the authority to do that. So the best we can do is to remain out here and bring you all of what is unfolding here at Criminal Court C. So the update remains the same. We do see Councillor Arthur Johnson from where we are. He's making a statement, and we don't want to speculate, but what we've been informed by our legal sources is that the indictment of the former finance minister will be read to him in open court. Whether or not he will be granted bond by the court, whether or not the bond that was filed through the Sky Insurance Company is going to apply to him, because the indictment was a joint one. We are bringing you all of the live coverage to give you those answers in real time. Whether or not a separate bond will be filed by him, and the court is going to make good of that bond to make sure the bond is a good one, and he will subsequently be turned over to his lawyers until the trial date. All those questions will only be answered from what the outcome will be from in the criminal court C. So as per his ranking in the former in the government of former President George Weah, he is so far the highest official of the past regime to make his way in court to answer questions surrounding corruption. The actual trial has not begun, but as per his ranking, the former finance minister is the highest ranking official of the Weah's administration to have a time in court, as we see others who were subsequently arrested and then a bond was filed for them, included Stanley Ford. He wasn't arrested, he's still at large. Tweah, the former Solicitor General of the Republic of Liberia, was arrested, subsequently taken to the Monrovia Central Prison. A bond was filed for him and the other co-defendants, including the former National Security Advisor to President Weah, Jefferson Camo, the former accountant at the Financial Intelligence Agency, Mr. Maurice Cooper, Samuel Tweah. Their names were all in that indictment. So far, only Mr. Stanley Ford, the former boss of the FIA, who has not come under the jurisdiction of the laws of Liberia, Minister Tweah, surrendering himself to the court, makes it 4 out of 5 individuals who were named in that indictment. The Boycott government has said accountability, transparency, and prosecution of those who are accused of committing crimes against the Republic of Liberia is going to be top of their agenda. The culture of impunity, according to the Boycott regime, will be ended under his mantle. Those from the CDC and other opposition parties and those who are not supporters of the Boycott administration have said all this is a witch hunt to go after political actors to weaken the main opposition party, the CDC, and to cause a distraction from the startling realities on the ground. Whatever the case is, this ground of the Temple of Justice has already witnessed a landmark ruling. That was in the case of the former Chief Justice, Councillor Gloria Musu-Scott, and 3 others who were acquitted of murder by the Supreme Court of Liberia on grounds that the prosecution did not meet the benchmark of establishing or beyond all reasonable doubt. That was a serious landmark ruling here. After that, fast forward to today, the Temple of Justice is witnessing another red letter day year in Liberia. After being indicted in July, being out of the country since then, the former finance minister has surrendered himself to the laws of Liberia. So we'll go live. We'll end this live to readjust, do some technical tweakings, and we'll be back.